Hello everyone, my name is Heather and welcome to the channel Bookables. Today I'm here to review 3 brand new releases that came out this month that I think a lot of us were anticipating and letting you know if they were worth the anticipation we all felt. All 3 of these books I was really looking forward to this month, and I have to say they all delivered, which is very rare for me in a review, especially type of video or like a mashup video that I like all the books, but this one, spoiler warning, I did. I like them all. They all came out this month, they're all new releases, and yeah, were they worth the hype or not? I think so. So 3 books I'm going to talk about today, and as always, I will leave timestamps down below if you want to hear about one particular book. But the books are The Rule Book by Sarah Adams, Just for the Summer by Abby Jimenez, and Funny Story by Emily Henry. So I'm going to talk about them in the order that I read them, which is exactly what I showed you. So let's get into it. First up, we have The Rule Book by Sarah Adams. This is my 4th Sarah Adams book I've read, and I'm finally on the Sarah Adams hype train. The first 2 books I read from her last year I didn't really like, which weirdly enough, they were both books that were the first in a series. There was the When in Rome, and then the first book in this series, The Cheat Sheet. The Cheat Sheet followed 2 characters, Bree and I forget his name, but basically they were best friends. He was a professional football player, and the rule book follows another professional football player on his same team named Derek. Derek had an injury at the end of the season last year and he couldn't play, and he had a replacement, but now he has had surgery, he's had rehab, and he is ready to start back up for the next season of football, only he's feeling very apprehensive because his replacement is really good. Will he get injured again? Will he be as good as he was? You never quite know. Through that, he has to get a new agent, and who should be his new agent but his old college sweetheart, Nora. And they had a very, very big relationship at college. They were head over the heels moon for each other, but then Nora broke it off, and he's been kind of in love with her since. So now that she's back in his life, he's like, you know what, I'm gonna give her a taste of her own medicine. Like, you know, I'm gonna make her feel like she wants to quit because she kind of broke my heart, so I'm kind of do the same to hers. Somehow they get into a whirlwind and they accidentally get married. They have to go on that charade, and that's kind of the whole scheme. I would say it's basically second chance romance, this book. The first book was more friends to lovers with fake dating. This one is second chance romance with fake dating as well. And I really love this one. I think I just love the characters more in this one. I love the romance in this one. And in case you're unfamiliar, Sarah Adams writes a lot of closed door romance, which means there's not a lot of steamy times in them. You can, you know, they're pretty clean, I would say. This one had a tiny bit, but I would still say it's pretty much closed door. So in case you're looking for clean romances, Sarah Adams is the way to go. But like I said, I love both of the characters. Nora was very quirky and very funny, had a great sense of fashion, and just had a lot of like kind of dad jokes, which I felt like I was reading about myself. Overall, it was just adorable. I did not give this one a full 5 out of 5. It wasn't quite there for me, but I did give it a 4.5 out of 5. If you just want kind of cutesy, ooey gooey romances that are just adorable, that will just lift your spirits up, Sarah Adams is the author for you. She does have some heavier topics in it, but her books are a little bit more lighter and fun, which I love. So I would recommend it. I like this one far more than the first book, and much like the other series, When in Rome, I like Practice Makes Perfect way more than When in Rome. So I would highly recommend checking out Sarah Adams. I do think she's worth the hype. They're just super cute, easy to pass the time with. Next up, we have one of my favorite authors, and that is Just for the Summer by Abby Jimenez. This, I've read all of her books. This is her I think this is her 6th book, if I'm not mistaken. I've read them all. I've told you guys of my relationship with her books. Her very first book she published, The Friend Zone, I loathe it. It's one of my least favorite romance books. I did not like it at all. However, the second book in that series, loved. One of my favorites. In fact, it was my favorite until I think this one. This one, like, her books just keep getting better and better in my opinion, and I thoroughly love this one. Abby Jimenez and the other author I'm talking about, Emily Henry, both have similar writing styles where, yes, they are very romantic, but they're also really emotional and very in-depth as well. So you're gonna get both. You're gonna get a lot of butterflies in your heart, but you're also gonna get your heart stomped on. So, you know, best of both worlds, I guess. I don't know. But either way, this one's a very interesting concept because it's about 2 characters named Emma and Justin. And basically, the beginning of this book starts off with a Reddit thread, which we have all been on all the time. I'm on Reddit all the time looking up things. But either way, this guy named Justin puts on, you know, the Reddit thread that he has this curse that whoever he dates, when they break up, the lady that he dates, his ex pretty much, the next person she dates will find the love of her life. That'll be it. It's kind of like that movie, I think it's Good Luck Chuck with Dane Cook and Jessica Alba in it. And so basically he's always just kind of the filler guy. Like, you know, he's never found his happily ever after because whenever he breaks up with someone, he knows that they're going to go find their love of their life. And he's just kind of continue on with the cycle. You should read this Reddit thread, but Emma, who feels like she has the same exact thing. So she contacts him. She's like, this is weird. I feel like the same thing. And they start talking. They become friends. He lives in Minnesota, where I think a lot or all of Abby Jimenez's books take place in Minnesota. And, you know, he's like, you know what, maybe we should just like date each other for the summer. And like, maybe that'll cancel out our curses, because when we break up with each other, we'll go find our respective love of our lives. You can clearly see the plot from a mile away, but nevertheless, she decides to do that because she is a traveling nurse. So her and her best friend always move around every 3 months. They get stationed. They pick where they want to go to in the States. So they decide to go to Minnesota, and she starts dating Justin. And this book has a lot of emotional trauma in it. I will say both of them are dealing with a lot. Emma has a lot of childhood trauma, more particularly her mother. Her mother has never been a fixture in her life. She was raised just by her mother. She's never known her dad, never known any other parts of her family, but just her mom. And her mom would leave her at lots of times, where she even actually went into the foster care system. And in this book at the beginning, who should show up but her mother, and she's excited, but she's like, how long is she going to stick around again before she leaves? Her mother decides to get with this other guy who was a very big part of another book of Abby Jimenez's, Part of Your World. So I would recommend reading both Part of Your World and Yours Truly to get a full encompassing, because there's intermillion characters all throughout this series. But anyway, so her mom starts dating this guy, and you know, Emma's really, she's got a lot of trauma, and she thinks she doesn't, but she does, and she divulges it more and more throughout the book. And Justin is also dealing with a lot of trauma as well, because he has to pretty much take guardianship of his 3 younger siblings, because his mother is going to jail for 10 years, and his life is going to be uprooted. He can't be carefree. He has to be pretty much a dad. And, you know, it's about these 2 characters that have had these circumstances that neither of them asked for. They just have had to have it happen, but they kind of bond together and fall in love. And it is a beautiful book. Yes, it is very, very sad with the things they are going through. Like Emma, oh my gosh, I just want to wrap her up in a hug. But you know, this book talks a lot about therapy, about recognizing your emotions, about difficult childhoods. Like, dang, I didn't have anywhere near of a childhood type of Emma, but I felt her so much. I would say this is one of her deepest books, I'll say, because of the trauma aspect. Like it cuts to the core of you, but she writes it so beautifully. She writes her characters beautifully. She mixes in characters from other books that do not feel forced, but feel organic. Like when you get to the end and you see some things, I can't spoil it, but I was like, oh my gosh, it was just phenomenal. Like my favorite book by Abby Jimenez, and I love this one. 5 out of 5. Read it. Probably have a box of tissues and some candy, because it'll make you want to eat because it's so sugary sweet, but also it'll make you cry because it's just amazing. Yes, you know, it's one of those covers that's like, looks lighthearted and fun, and I was so much fun, but also like sobbing. Yeah, she does that, and she does it freaking well. Like amazing. 5 out of 5. If you haven't read her books, do yourself a favor and read them. Next up, I have one that I literally just finished today as of filming, and that is Funny Story by Emily Henry. This is her, I want to say her 5th adult romance book, and I have, spoiler warning, I've given all of her books a 5 out of 5. Like in this one, again, 5 out of 5, who's surprised? Are you? Probably not. But either way, Emily Henry has become a fixture in the romance genre with good reason. Because like my girl Abby Jimenez, they both know how to write very romantic and again, very sad, and just wraps it all up, and it's amazing. This one, I will say, is not my favorite Emily Henry book still, but I loved it. So this one again is very interesting to explain. So we have a character named Daphne. At the very beginning of this book, Daphne is engaged to Peter, and she is just happy. She lived in Virginia, which, what's up? I live in Virginia as well. And, you know, Peter's from Michigan, and she decides to uproot her whole life and move to Michigan to start a brand new life with him, because he's from there, his family, you know, all that kind of stuff. And, you know, they're having a great time. And then the night of his bachelor party, the next day he shows up in the morning, he's like, yeah, I can't do this. You know, I am actually in love with my best friend, Petra, who has been his childhood best friend forever. And she's like, are you freaking kidding me? And so Peter leaves for his best friend Petra. Then who should come in the picture is Miles, who is Petra's ex. And so Daphne and Miles move in together because they're like, crap, what are we gonna do? She's like, I have nowhere to live because I literally moved here. And he's like, well, I have no one else to live with because my freaking girlfriend left me for your fiance. You know, it's about 2, not exes, but like people that got dumped, you know? I guess you could say. And so she moves in with Miles, and it's about her starting her life in Michigan. And she is a children's librarian, and I love that so much. Good friend that's a children's librarian, and I could tell how much she loves and cares for the job and the kids and the programs and things like that, just like Daphne. Daphne had a passion for it, and I loved reading her Saturday story times because I take my daughter to story times, and I was just like, oh, this is so cool. But Daphne is basically trying to find herself because she got broken up with. She's in a brand new town. She's also dealing with a lot of trauma as well with her dad, because her dad kind of floats in and out of her life. He was not very present, things like that. And oh my gosh, like Emily Henry can always find some sort of aspect of my life that just fits in perfectly, because I also, hello, have daddy issues. Like my dad was never really present. My dad was come around when he felt like it. My dad really wasn't a dad, in my opinion. So I was like, Daphne girl, I feel you. I feel you so, so much. But basically what happens in this book is, you know, Daphne and Miles are seeing all these pictures of Peter and Petra because they decide to get engaged like immediately after they get together. And they're like, you know what? We are pissed. We are pissed we got left. Like there was no reason, you know, like they could have done this years ago. Why now? And so they're like, you know what? Let's post some pictures on Instagram of, you know, us pretending to be a couple. Maybe it'll ruffle some feathers. And indeed it does. But what quickly starts off as like maybe like a fake thing turns into real feelings for both Daphne and Miles. And it's a beautiful love story of both Daphne and Miles, you know, kind of moving on from the love they thought they had with these respective partners, and realizing that the love that they share, Daphne and Miles, is so much stronger and sweeter and more rooted in actual love. It's a beautiful book. Again, Emily Henry writes amazing side characters, amazing settings. I wanted to go to Wanning Bay and just go to the library and go to all the places that Miles took her. I loved it. Miles was like chef's kiss of all book boyfriends. He was amazing. I loved him. I mean, 5 out of 5. Like this one is not, I would say, nearly as emotional in depth, in my opinion, than Just for the Summer. This one takes the cake for that. But this one also, it had a lot of things. It had abandonment. It had trauma with childhood. It had, you know, starting your life over when someone just up and leaves you that you thought you were going to spend the rest of your life with. That's a big change. Meeting new friends, being in a brand new place, you know, all those kind of things. Dad things. It is a beautiful book. If you haven't read Emily Henry, please do so. She is worth the hype, in my opinion. I love her. I will always say my favorite book of hers was actually last year's release, Happy Face, which not a lot of people loved. I feel like I'm in the minority in that one, but I loved Happy Place. It was literally like what I was going through at that moment with friendships and stuff, and this one also resonated with me. Emily Henry, I will always read what she writes because I just will. Either way, those are my thoughts and feelings on the 3 most anticipated new releases that came out this month that I was very, very excited for, and I think all of them did really, really well. Like, this is probably one of the best months I've had reading in a long time. Like, to have 2 5-stars in a month, I mean, to have a, you know, it's going to be a good month when both these authors release a book. You know it's going to be a good month. And this one too, like, I was like, oh my gosh, April's going to be an amazing reading month. And what do you know? It was. So check out these. If you want something light, fluffy, happy, check this one out. If you want some deep romance with a lot of emotional depth, check this one out. If you want, again, super romantic, but also starting over and dealing with some things, not as emotionally in depth as this one, check this one out. Neither one of them will steer you wrong. I would love to know what you thought of these. If you've read them, let me know what you thought and rated them. As always, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in my next video. Bye.